if you are in a long-distance relationship, or if you're going to be in a long-distance relationship in the future, chances are it's going to be a big fat waste of your time, and you shouldn't have done it, and you should have known better. There are ways to make a long-distance relationship work, but there are a lot of potential pitfalls. There are a lot of blind spots that men and women have getting into these relationships, and this video is going to help you understand why long-distance relationships are such a problem and what to do if you really want to try to make one work. So, hello, my name is Zach Rohde. I am here to lead you into creating the relationship of your dreams by learning how to inspire a man to cherishing you using your feminine energy and what I call feminine communication. If you've not yet subscribed to my channel, then click that subscribe button below, hit the notification button, and be sure to like this video because I'm going to make sure that it is a good one for you today. And if you would like to learn how to inspire a man to cherish you, make sure that you go below this video, open up the description, and all my offers are there. Start with my free webinar at zachrohdecoaching.com. That's going to show you how to shift out of your unhealthy control patterns and into communicating in a way where a man is going to absolutely love it. All right, let's talk about long-distance relationships. So why are they a problem? They're a problem because, not to offend anyone here, but they're not really real relationships, okay? They're pseudo-relationships, and they're pseudo-relationships because it's kind of a unidimensional relationship. In a real relationship, it's where you are physically present with the other person quite often, several times a week, I would say, at a bare minimum. Several being 3, and you really get to know them on that level. You get to know them energetically, you get to know them physically. I don't necessarily mean having sex right away, but physically in other ways. And their presence, and with a man, right, you're seeing how he's leading. You're seeing how he's planning, you're seeing how he's taking charge, and this is the most important part. You get to know the not so great parts of the other person, we'll call it relatively quickly, right? The things that irritate you, the things that bother you, the things that bring up certain anxieties for you. And then you have all of these opportunities now to communicate what's coming up for you and see how the man is responding to your feelings, to your problems, or at least that's what you should be doing. If you're staying silent about that, well, that's a problem. You need to keep watching more of my videos. In a long-distance relationship, a lot of that stuff doesn't exist. Now, obviously, it depends on the extent of it, right? Some long-distance relationships, I suppose you could say you're seeing the other person every 2 or 3 weeks. That could be considered long-distance, right? Then there's other long-distance relationships where it's like we're talking 3 months or 6 months or, unfortunately, even much longer than that. And the longer that a couple goes without seeing each other in between, the more problematic it becomes. It can, for many women, it becomes something of a fantasy, right? Because, hopefully you're at least FaceTiming or whatever the kids are using these days. I used to use Skype in the old days to actually see the other person's face and get a better sense of their energy and everything. But you're still not really having a full relationship with that other person. You're talking. Yes, you're doing a lot of talking. Yes, you're getting to know a person in that way, which can be good. Like, to be fair about long-distance relationships, the one advantage is it does put you in a position where you're kind of forced to get to know them more through conversation than what could happen if you're physically present, right? Because you could be doing other activities, going to the movies a lot, going to, play mini golf or whatever. And so there's going to be less deep conversation, or there could be less deep conversation that way. Whereas long-distance relationships, it kind of puts you in that position where it's like, all right, all we can really do is talk to each other and get to know each other in that way. That is great. Right, that is actually, I would say, the best part about a long-distance relationship, because there's a lot of people who are not long-distance who aren't even really capable of doing that. And that's going to be a problem for the long-term sustainability of a relationship. So with that said, even though that is a good thing, the downside is here's what happens. And I'm speaking from personal experience, number one, and I'm also speaking from many experiences from clients. What will tend to happen, once you, let's say you start out long distance and then you see each other more and more, and, you could spend 6 months, a year, longer than a year really getting to know this person and kind of building up this fantasy of who they really are and how great they are. You're seeing so much of their positive stuff and not seeing nearly as much of the negative stuff. And then let's say you guys eventually move to the same city, hypothetically. That'd be a good case scenario, because there's a lot of long distance relationships that never go anywhere, where women just get strung along for years. That's another topic entirely. Let's say you eventually get to the same place, whether it takes 6 months or a year, longer than a year. And then what happens is you get to know the other side of them in a way that should have happened a long time ago, but it couldn't because of the distance. And then you find out there's all these problems, there's all this lack of compatibility. It's one thing to talk about it, but it's a totally different reality to actually deal with it when it comes up, for real. And then you see, okay, this man is actually a lot more flawed than I thought he was. And he's not dealing with the problems in the way that I thought he would. Maybe he's not leading in the way that I thought I would. And then that fantasy that you had built up in your mind, to one extent, starts to implode on itself. And you see this flawed human, this flawed man, for who they really are. And in some cases, of course, it can still work out, right? Because, no man's going to be perfect, whether you start out long distance or not. Right, but the problem is, if it's not long distance, you find out those things sooner, so that you can decide whether it's worth continuing with that man much earlier, which means you waste way less time. Because not every man's going to be right for you, right? There's lots of men who are absolutely not relationship material, but the key is you want to see if they can demonstrate that early, because you got limited time as a woman. How much time do you want to waste on this, especially if you want to have a family? But even if you're through that phase, if you're done that phase, do you really want to waste years or many months minimum of your time when that could be dealt with much, much sooner? My personal experience too, this was way, we're talking late teens, early 20s. There's 2 long distance relationships I had, and I wasn't very good with women back then. In fact, I would say I was quite bad with women. But there was these 2 women that I was in a relationship with, and they did really like me. I really liked them. And in both situations, I very clearly in hindsight, I realized I had built up this fantasy where it was really fun to talk with them. But then actually really physically being with them for a certain length of time, I'm not really into this in the same way that I was. And this is the other issue too, right? So the flip side of this, 2 things can happen. Either you realize, oh, you know what, I'm not really that into this man like I thought I was, or you now become, you're in the same city and spending more time with him, you realize that you really like him, and that fantasy doesn't go away, he's still amazing, but he realizes that, wait a minute, this woman, I kind of built her up in my mind. And then he starts to withdraw, and he's not being that masculine leader that you need. And you're like, what's going on? Right? Because he didn't really get to know you in a way, quickly, physically, to realize that you're not the right woman for him. And now, oh man, ladies, now you're so attached to him because you've built up this fantasy, because you've connected with him. I'm not saying it's all a fantasy, it's not, but part of it is a fantasy. And you've connected with him on all of these deep levels, conversationally, and then he starts to withdraw. That's really painful. That in many ways, that's like having sex with a man really early, and then he starts to withdraw. Right? You connected in this other deep way, and he starts to withdraw, all because it was this long distance where he wasn't truly getting to know the real you. That's a big problem. So here's the solution into all this. If you're going to do long distance relationships, and I don't recommend that as a first choice, But, maybe you're from a really small town and there's not many men available. Or maybe you just happen to meet this man who seems perfect for you could be another country or, out of state or wherever. And you're like, man, I really want to make this work. Okay. So if you really want to make this work, first of all, number one thing is you want to spend as much physical time as possible. And you need a man who is truly committed to that, because I'm telling you, just from observing clients especially, and women in my free group as well, my free Facebook group, there are so many men that are kind of just stringing a woman along. It's like, whether the woman is on the back burner for him, or whether it's because he's just insecure himself and he wants to feel this connection but he's too afraid to make steps forward, you want to make sure that you are dating a masculine man who really likes you. And if you are dating a masculine man who really likes you, he is going to move mountains around to get to spend that as much time with you as reasonably as possible. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. If he's not doing that, why are you bothering being in a long-distance relationship? It's like there's tons of risk already, and he doesn't seem all in committed. If you're going to be in a long-distance relationship, you must feel that. You must feel that commitment, not just words, because a man can say whatever the hell he wants. Like, men make stuff up all the time, not even necessarily lying on purpose. They lie to themselves, right? So it's not just the words. You're actually seeing that reflected in reality by his actions, moving those mountains to make things possible to see you as much as he reasonably can. Okay? Don't gaslight yourself on this. Don't justify his excuses. He's got to be committed to that. And then number two, and this would apply, actually this past one I just said as well as the one I'm going to say, it also applies if you're not long distance, right? You want a man who's really committed to making things work. You want a man who feels all in with you. Second thing is you need to be fully vulnerably yourself. That means you are sharing everything, all the feelings that are coming up about you. One of the big ones is going to be you're feeling like a lot of anxiety, like you're feeling this insecurity that's coming up for you. Anxiety, fear, because of the long distance situation. You're probably also going to be feeling needy a reasonable amount of the time. If you are pretending to just be resilient and like you got things together and it's, not a very big deal, you are not being who you really are, and you're not going to be able to hide that in person. Like, you are wasting your time. And you're also not being fully in your own feminine self-worth, right, if you're hiding that stuff. That stuff is not going to push away a healthy masculine man who really likes you. It might push away an emasculated man. It might push away a man who's, kind of lukewarm with you. It's not going to push away the right kind of man for you. It's actually going to pull him in further. It's going to make him feel more connected to you. It's going to make him fall in love with you, because that's what makes a man fall in love with a woman. It's not her body. It's not what she can do for him. It's her heart. It's your heart that makes a healthy masculine man fall in love with you. It's your vulnerability. It's your softness. It's your, not acting needy. I'm not saying act needy. I'm not saying act insecure. I'm saying communicate vulnerably, using feminine communication, using what I teach women, the language that I teach women, the energy that I teach women. Share that you feel anxious. Share that you feel needy. Share all of your feelings. Share when you feel angry about something that he does, or when you feel sad. You have to share all of it. Now, you have to do it in the right way. Most women communicate this stuff in the wrong way, and then they get a bad result, and then they start to think that, a man just doesn't care and my feelings don't matter. That is not the case. Or it's usually not the case. I mean, you might be dating a narcissist or something, but it's usually not the case. Usually, he would care. He does like you. He would value your heart. It's just you don't know how to communicate it. You might think that you're that you're communicating in the right way, but you're not. And then you're going to continue getting the same results, and then you're going to get scared to share your heart, and you're going to hide more of yourself, and then that's not going to attract healthy masculine men either, because healthy masculine men are attracted to a woman's heart. They're attracted to a woman's vulnerability. That's what makes a man fall in love with you. That is what makes a man inspired to want to take care of you, lead you, claim you as his woman, marry you, all of it. That's the key. But you need to learn how to communicate this the right way. If you want to learn how, I already talked about my webinar earlier in this video. The other thing that you can and absolutely should do is join our next Polarity Masterclass at polaritymasterclass.com and go to thedreamrelationship.com and learn about what we do in our Academy program, what my team and I do to help women make these shifts, practice this communication with you. Those two offers, as well as my free webinar offer and all my other offers, they are below this video in the description. Open it up, see all my links, and get started. That's how you're going to inspire a man into creating the relationship of your dreams.